Greetings, Remnant Church and online friends. Welcome to the Midweek Refuel, where we seek out the ancient wisdom so that we can clearly see today's folly. Please take a second and whack the like and subscribe button. It really helps us out, and it only takes a second, and it helps us to reach more and more people every day. Ever since I learned how effective getting those little buttons pushed can be for content providers on YouTube, Rumble, and other such places, I hit at least the like button for every video that I watch that has helped me at all, because I know it means a lot to them. Would you do the same for me? If you are new to this channel, make sure to check out Remnant's Sunday lesson, which can be found on my top level account, Orthopraxy under Rumble. I believe it's John Whitfield on YouTube. It's called the Weekly Jumpstart. You can also find it in some of our media outlets known as Sunday's Message. And if you benefit from these lessons, I think you will find the Jumpstart to be uplifting and beneficial to your life as well. This week's reading I found to be incredibly profound. I found it to be so profound and so absolutely beautiful that I honestly hate commenting on it and teaching it at all. It teaches itself. It speaks in a spiritual language that is best experienced than understood. I honestly believe that I can only dilute the beauty and richness of the original work, and for that I apologize. Augustine and his mother are talking about the life to come. If you remember last week, we learned that she passed away, and this week he is recalling one of their last conversations, and it's beautiful. They are talking about the afterlife, but when we get to the reading, notice that they are also talking about so much more. They are talking about things that can only be described in the language that is available to us in infinity. Through the course of this week's chapter, Augustine slowly stops telling you the words that were being said and instead relies on conveying the feelings of what was said or what was experienced, and eventually even begins talking in that spiritual language of symbols, which is so very annoying for those who have not been there and so absolutely elating to those that have been there. There are rare times in life when two souls are caught up to the third heaven together. And when you experience those are beautiful, and they are beyond words, and words can no longer describe the sense of unity, oneness, holiness, and peace that is experienced in these rare spiritual moments in life. There comes to us in these moments clear and yet indescribable clarity about God himself, about life, and about the wheels of eternity. It is as though the mind is utterly turned away from itself. And because the idol of ego is no longer in the temple gate blocking our view, the soul can finally see through and to the grand vistas of eternity and even catch glimpses of the unknowable God. The mind, at least my mind, I have found in its sin state, when I allow it to lapse, the mind is bent onto itself. It longs for that. It wants it. It has a type of, I don't know how better to describe it, a self-lust. It is concerned with appearances and the appearances of this realm and this satanic simulation. It is concerned with social norms. It is worried about tomorrow. It is shamed about the past. It is paranoid in the moment. It is licking some blow to pride that wounded it. It is feeling superior. It is feeling inferior. And at times it is feeling just equal. It can think good things. It can. It can think bad things. It will. It never turns off of its own accord. And when you need it to be still, it fights you tooth and nail, clawing at you so that it doesn't have to endure the turning away from itself, the silence which opens itself up to the eternal. And of course it does. Having the mind encounter the eternal is like having your feet encounter a cliff edge. As you approach the cliff, you start to realize the true scale and height with which you are beginning to flirt. They began that journey to the cliff of eternity, he and his mother, with these words, quote, "And in our hearts we thirsted for celestial streams of your fountain, O fount of life, the fount that is in you, that being sprinkled with its waters, we might somehow contemplate this great matter, according to our understanding," unquote. Have you ever tried to put a running garden hose in your mouth? You know you have. Every dumb kid out there has tried this. Every dumb kid out there stretches their cheeks till they hurt trying to see how much water they can suck down. And eventually, you have to pull the hose out or drown. Choice is yours. The fount of heaven is unending. It will flow forever. It will dissolve ego and pride and flush out contaminants. And in these vessels of clay, these now broken by sin vessels of clay, we might fill up and flow over, which the Bible talks about that. But in the spiritual realm, this can be avoided by keeping the vessel empty and allowing what comes in to also exit to others, the mind receiving and letting go in the perfect state of turning away from itself. When the vessel is empty, it can keep the water flowing and flowing into this satanic simulation for the love of others. When the vessel is always empty, which Jesus Christ was the only one that pulled that off, but when the vessel is always empty, it can, for a brief moment, in a way that cannot be described by those who have experienced it, it is beyond words, a knowledge of eternity itself. And found within that knowledge of eternity is the vanity of everything else. All true wisdom has stood on the cliff of eternity, and all true wisdom realizes the truth of this small reality. And that wisdom can be found in the opening lines of Ecclesiastes. Let's listen to the teacher. He says, quote, "Meaningless, meaningless," says the teacher. "Utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless," unquote. In the light of eternity, your 70 some odd years on this planet within this reality construct are revealed to you to be meaningless, meaningless. To those who have not tasted from the eternal fountain, this meaninglessness can be devastating news. It can even cause depression. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. But for the saint, it is freedom and it is joy, because everything begins to fall into the realm and the power of Christ, submitting to Christ and the knowledge of Christ. The saint can love everything, and the saint can love everyone, because the light of eternity has revealed the true condition of our reality and of each other. The saint is also balanced by their wisdom and assurance of, quote, "resting in God's peace," unquote. That's from the book. That the trials of this life lose their sting and lose their devastating importance to our small prides, egos, and finitely chained minds. The saint has jumped off the cliff and into eternity, and their life is a life of abandon as they fall from here into the arms of their Creator. Love is possible. Fear can be removed, and strength can be achieved by jumping off that cliff. Listen to the paragraph that I almost stole from to entitle this lesson. I was going to call this lesson "Richness Unfailing," but I thought better of it, and I like my new title. But the paragraph that I got it from says this, or the line that I got it from says this, quote, "Still higher we went through inward contemplation and discussion and admiration of your works. We came to our own minds and passed beyond them to attain the land of richness unfailing, where you feed Israel forever with the food of truth. There, life is the wisdom through which all things that were and that are to be come into being. Yet it does not itself come into being, but is as it has been and will always be. And more than that, there is nothing past nor future in it, but only being, since it is eternal. How do you unpack that? How do you teach such things as that? Like the mystery schools and their initiation dramas, much of Christian spirituality can only be experienced. It cannot be taught to you as would math or history. Spirituality is not about learning the truth. It is about experiencing the truth. When I was young and read the works of Augustine or even Lewis and some of the other greats, they spoke about these realities and these experiences that I had never had. They sounded tantalizing to me. They awoke in me a thirst. They awoke in me a longing to know. Through their writings, a sliver of the light of heaven had hit my soul and woke me up. And I have spent all my days since then trying to experience the truth in such a way as to understand the inner and secret language of the redeemed. Praise be to his name, which is above all names. He has allowed me, yes, even me, to stand the cliff and see his back as he walks away. And once you've seen that, you will never be the same. It is such a short reading today, and I want to quote so much of it. So listen closely today and see if you find that your heart yearns to know what Augustine and his mother know. Listen closely today and ask yourself, have I had this kind of encounter? Have I had this kind of experience? And if I haven't, do I want it? And if you haven't, then ask yourself if you want this kind of encounter or not. I believe that everyone who has ever experienced would tell you the same thing. It takes a kind of death, but it is worth it. Pick up your cross. So let's go ahead and read today's chapter before I quote the whole thing verbatim anyway. Turn to Book 9, Chapter 10 of the Confessions. And again, you can get a free copy from the Gutenberg Project, which is linked down below. Now listen, I tell you a mystery, or rather Augustine does. When the day was at hand, when she would leave this life, you knew this day, but we did not. It came about, and this I believe you contrived, working in your hidden ways, that she and I were alone, leaning out of a window that overlooked the courtyard garden of the house that lodged us there at Ostia on Tiber, where after the labors of our long journey, we were refreshing ourselves far from the bustle of the crowds for our sea voyage. The two of us then were alone, and we talked together in all sweetness, forgetful of the past, straining in you the present truth for the things before us. What manner of eternal life awaits the saints, we asked. The life that eye has not seen, nor ear heard, that has not ascended into the heart of man. And in our hearts we thirsted for celestial streams of your fountain, O fount of life, the fountain that is in you, that being sprinkled with its water, we might somehow contemplate this great matter according to our understanding. When our conversation reached the point at which no pleasure derived from carnal sense, however great, however illumined by bodily light, seemed in respect of the sweetness of that life worthy not only of comparison, but even of mention, then we raised ourselves up in a more ardent longing for the same, moving step by step through all things corporeal, even the sky itself from which the sun and the moon and the stars shine upon the earth. Still higher we went through inward contemplation and discussion and admiration of your works. We came to our own minds and passed beyond them to attain the land of richness unfailing, where you feed Israel forever with the food of truth. There, life is the wisdom through which all things that were and that are to be come into being. Yet it did not itself come into being, but is as it has been and will always be. And more than that, there is neither past nor future in it, but only being, since it is eternal. And as we talked and thirsted for it, we attained it according to our small degree. For the space of a whole heartbeat and sign, we let firmly fix there the first fruits of the Spirit and made our way back to the clatter of human speech, where words have a beginning and an ending. But what is like your word, O Lord, that abides in itself, not waxing old, but renewing all things? We said, therefore, let us suppose the tumult of one's flesh were to fall silent. Then the vain illusions of earth, waters, and air were to fall silent. Then the sky were to fall silent. Let us suppose that one's very soul were to fall silent, and by not thinking about itself, were to transcend itself. Suppose all dreams and revelatory images, all tongues and symbols, all that comes to be passing away, were to fall silent. For all these things say to whoever listens, we did not make ourselves. Our maker is he who abides forever. Let us suppose that they were to fall silent, having aroused us with these words to listen to their maker. Suppose also that he, the maker, were to speak, he alone, not through things he has made, but through himself, so that we could hear his word, not through fleshly tongue, nor through angel's voice, not through the sound of the thunder, nor through the riddle of a parable. But suppose we could hear him whom we love for all these things. But without all these things, just as even now we stretched out and with soaring contemplation attain the eternal wisdom that abides above all things. Let us suppose also that this state were to be prolonged, and that other far inferior visions were removed, and this one vision were to enrapture and swallow up and hide the beholder in itself, so that life would eternally be as this moment of understanding for which we sighed. Would such a state not be what is meant by the words, enter into your master's joy? And when shall this be? Will it be when we all shall rise, but shall not all be transformed? So we said, if not in this manner and in these words, but you know, O Lord, that as we discussed such matters that day, the world and all its pleasures became to us at our words a thing disprized. And my mother said to me, my son, for my part, I no longer take any pleasure in this life. What I am doing here still, and why I am here, I do not know. My hope in this world is spent. There was one thing for which I used to long to remain a while longer in this life, to see you a Catholic Christian before I died. This my God has bestowed upon me, and more. I see you now his servant, scorning worldly happiness. What am I doing here? That ending is incredible, isn't it? It's incredible to me because it sounds so today. It sounds so modern. As I look around at this world and watch its inevitable decline, I feel a deep homesickness for eternity. The earth lurches towards the chaos of sin. And me, I long for another city, a city not made by the hands of men. It is not a suicidal thought. It is a patient longing and enduring. My job is not yet done. But when it is, when I have accomplished all that my God and my Maker has prepared me in advance to accomplish, I will then lift my head and join Augustine's mother in my final gasp and my final emptying of this vessel with this refrain, what am I doing here? And in that moment, the leap into eternity will be complete, and the fall will be embraced in full. The dregs of this world shall have been imbibed to their very depths, and I will see my King, and I will enter into my Master's joy. If only I could still my mind. What am I doing here? Christ is King. Hail to the King.